gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, in the meantime, thanks for joining us, everyone, today. My name is Jasper with SCORE Maine, joined by Reggie Parsons for a presentation on Maine's paid family medical leave, a new law that's going into place that'll affect all businesses in the state of Maine. And we're here to demystify the proceedings around it. If you didn't know about us at SCORE, we're a no-cost business mentoring program where you can apply for a mentor for free at score.org. It's free, one-on-one, and confidential. And I want to thank our sponsor today. They are, I believe, the Maine Technology Institute, but I can double check. And yeah, the actually Main Street Bath has sponsored today. We love Maine Technology Institute, but Main Street Bath is one of our favorite co-workers and resource partners. Either way, Reggie, thanks for putting on this presentation, and why don't you go ahead?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yes. So I'm Reggie Parson. I'm the Deputy Director for the Maine Pay Family and Medical Leave Program. And before I share my screen, I believe there's some other folks from the PFML team here. I see Sophia Khalid on the call as well. But I really want to thank you all for taking the time to learn more about paid family medical leave. As it was noted earlier, that this is a new law to the state of Maine, but there's a lot of components that we're still working on implementation, and others that we have, for the most part, fully implemented. So what I'm going to do today is just go over a very brief PowerPoint presentation if folks can see it, and then leave enough time for any questions and answers. So what I'll do is go ahead and start with a general overview. So basically how we got here was that Governor Mills signed into law the state budget that included the creation of the Paid Family and Medical Leave Law. So the legislature in 2023, this piece of legislation, after years of study regarding the impacts on paid family medical leave in the state of Maine, and the commission ultimately developed a set of recommendations, which for the most part became part of the legislation. So the bill went through the normal legislative process, and ultimately was included in the state budget. So this made Maine the 13th state in the country to adopt its own state-run paid family medical leave program. And the law will provide up to 12 weeks of paid leave for the reasons that you see here. So for either family leave, medical leave, safe leave, or leave related to a family member's impending military deployment. And I'll kind of provide more description of those type of leaves in a later slide. But one of the things that I think is pretty becoming well known at this point is that it has a broad application. So this law touches most employers, if not all employers in the state of Maine. And so that's why we think it's important to do constant outreach and education about the law, as we are now, as many employees are starting to see the 0.5% deduction come from their pay. So again, to kind of dig a little bit more into the reasons for leave, and these are just more general examples here, but this will apply. So for individuals who are looking to take family leave, can be reasons for either expanding your families through birth, adoption, or fostering, or if you might have a family member that has a serious health issue, you could take time off for that. For medical leave, it's the employee taking care of their own medical needs, so they might need to take time off for that. When it comes to safe leave, this applies to either the employee or an employee's family member that may be experiencing some form of abuse or violence, and unfortunately may need to take time off to handle that. And then finally, when it comes to military deployment, this part of the law applies to, let's just say, for example, SCORE might have an employee who has a spouse who is a service member, and that service member may be getting soon ready to deploy. So that employee could take time off to handle what, at least I think, what most people think will be a pretty significant transition in that employee's life while that person is away. So to handle childcare arrangements or any financial things, these are just more general examples, but you can take leave for this purpose. So, as I mentioned before, money is starting to come out of employees' pay for the purposes of paid family and medical leave. But one of the things I wanted to do here was kind of touch on the premiums because I know there's a lot of chatter, whether it's on social media or otherwise, about the cost of the program. So the contribution rate or the premium rate for this program is capped at 1% of an individual's wage rate. This premium can be split between the employee and the employer, and I'll kind of get more into what the premium breakdown is with the two examples that you see here. But there are also other entities that can elect coverage, and those are self-employed individuals and Maine's one of Maine's tribal governments. So if those individuals wanted to elect coverage, they could. And if you're a self-employed individual, you'll be paying 50% of the premium rate, or in 2025, 0.5%. So when it comes to, I just want to kind of spend a little bit more time on this breakdown because I think it's important as people are starting to see the premiums come out of their pay. But for employers that have 15 or more employees, and this is what we've tried to do to clarify the law, that premium rate will be essentially 1%. So we use an example here of an employer with a payroll of about $1 million a year. What they would owe to the state would be $10,000, so 1%. So the employer will be paying 0.5%, and the employees as well will be paying the other 0.5%, equaling 1% total. However, if you are an employer with less than 15 employees, that premium rate does look different. So we use an example of an employer that has a payroll of about $250,000 a year. That premium rate for that size of an organization is 0.5%. And so we use that example that they will be, owing for the year $1,250. And so at 0.5%, that's what it will cost. So again, it does make a difference in terms of the employer size. One of the things to note, regardless of employer size, is that the employer can choose to deduct or not deduct the 0.5% from employees' pay and just choose to pay that on their own. That is an entirely employer-based decision, but either way, at least 0.5% will be coming from employees' pay to pay into the program. So this next chart here kind of hopefully breaks this down a little bit more clear. So the three salary examples you see here are just general salary examples. We know that in real time what your premium amount it is based on your wages. So for example, starting with someone who's making about, on average, $35,000 a year, at 0.5% premium deduction, it's about $3.36 a week, or for the entire year, $175. And then you'll see what the other premium deduction amounts are based on the wages. So again, the premium amount, what you actually see come out of your pay, it is based on your wages. So when it comes to the eligibility requirements, this is something as part of the implementation process we're making progress on. I will say that, but there's still a lot of things that we need to continue to flesh out, especially as we get closer to 2026. So the first thing that I'll start with in this slide is kind of what are the notice requirements that an employee has to give to the employer. So obviously, if it's an emergency, that's a little bit different. But for leave that the employee can foresee, so like for example, they might have a scheduled medical procedure that needs to get done that the employee can't foresee. The employee must give the employer at least 30 days notice. So that is what you see in the quotation marks reasonable notice. is 30 days at least, that the employee is intending to take leave. The last bullet point that you will see about the term undue hardship kind of complicates that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But the next thing is that when the employee is applying, and I just want to clarify, when the employee is applying, they're applying to the state of Maine. So the employer doesn't have the burden of processing an application. The wage data, we should have that on hand if employers are reporting that wage data into the portal. But for the most part, if not all of part, the employee is applying to the state when they're intending to take leave. But when they are applying to the state, they must provide proof of the reason that they're trying to take the leave. So if it's for a medical procedure, there might be some medical certifications that might need to be involved. But again, we are continuing to flesh this out as we're getting closer to 2026. So in terms of the earnings, so there is an earnings requirement that has to be met under the law. So under the law, an employee must earn 6 times the state average weekly wage in 4 of the last 5 completed quarters before accessing the benefit. So essentially, when the employee is applying to the state, and again, hopefully we do have this wage data on hand, we're looking at what this employee has made over the course of a year, or a little bit more than that, to make sure that they've hit that monetary requirement. One thing I want to mention about the state average weekly wage is that it could change on a yearly basis. So the example you see here is based on 2024, the state average weekly wage amount. Sometime maybe around July 1 of this year, we will see if that number changes. But if the state average weekly wage does change for 2025, it will affect what the total amount that employee must earn over the year in order to be eligible. And then lastly, when it comes to undue hardship, again, this is where it might complicate things a little bit more in terms of providing notice. So the employer under the law, and we clarify this in rule, can claim an undue hardship, which essentially means is that the employee taking leave is going to cause a significant impact on the operations of the employer. And I don't know if you folks are into reading, specific Maine Department of Labor rules at all, but we're more than happy to clarify this in future FAQs as well. But in section 5 of the rule, where it talks about notice and undue hardship, that is where I would certainly encourage folks on this call, and I can provide the link to the rule or the document itself, just so you have a better understanding about what undue hardship means and what that means in terms of the employer claiming an undue hardship and the employee providing notice of their intent to take leave. But again, I'm happy to also answer any questions that might pop up today. So when it comes to the benefit amount, obviously people are paying into a program, and so if eligible, will receive a weekly benefit. So I'll try to slow down on this a little bit more just so folks have a better understanding. But when an employee is applying to the state, in order to determine what their weekly benefit amount will be, it will be based on a 2-tiered wage replacement system. So for individuals, and let me backtrack. So when we are trying to calculate what that weekly benefit amount is, at tier 1, we have to figure out what that wage replacement is at 90%. So if the employee is earning at least, or sorry, is earning equal or less than 50% of the state average weekly wage, we're going to replace that at 90%. For any earnings that are over 50% of the state average weekly wage, we're going to replace it at 66%. And so what I mean by less than 50% or more than 50%, again, is all tied back to whatever the state average weekly wage is. So for example, if we're trying to figure out what is a 90% wage replacement for wages that are at or less than 50%, we're just slashing that number that you see here of $1,144 divided by 2. And so that really starts the process. And so actually to hopefully make this a little bit more clear, we use the three same salary examples as I mentioned previously for premiums. So I'll start really at $35,000, someone who's earning that. So in order for us to start this process, we have to figure out what are they making on a weekly basis. So if we divide their annual salary by 52 weeks, they should be earning on average about $673. So to figure out, again, the tier one wage replacement, which will be 90%, we will calculate that. And as you'll see here, most people, well, all of the three salary examples are earning $514 a week. But where it gets a little bit more, where there's more distinguishment in this tiered wage replacement is tier two. So many of these workers that you see here are earning more than 50% of the state average weekly wage, which you see does vary by number. So at the last column, when you see weekly benefit amount, that is how much someone should be earning on average while on paid family and medical leave. And for the incomes that are at $90,000 or more, which will probably hit that cap, it is again capped at whatever the state average weekly wage will be. So there's some other things to just keep in mind about the law itself. So one of the things is that there are job protections surrounding this law. So for workers that have worked for an employer for at least 120 consecutive days, they are entitled to job protections, meaning they're entitled to return back to that job or a job equivalent to the one that they had prior to taking leave. And this also includes any benefits that they may have earned or accrued during that time. They are entitled to return back to that. One of the things about this law that I think makes Maine a little bit more unique is that these benefits are portable, meaning that it's not tied down to the specific job that you are maybe currently holding. So it doesn't mean that you don't have to apply. Yes, you still have to apply, but by default of you, for example, leaving one employer and going to another, you don't lose the ability to apply for paid family and medical leave. And so finally, these are some things that we certainly encourage folks to do is definitely review our webpage. This is really the place where you can find up-to-date FAQs. We have explainer videos that are also translated in different languages as well. And on that website, I would certainly encourage you to sign up for our interested parties list. We use that channel pretty often to let both workers, self-employed individuals, and employers know about all the things that are happening with paid family and medical leave and anything that they may need to respond to. So when you go online, you'll see a box where it says get notified. It's a pretty, I think it's about two-step process to sign up on the interested parties list, but I certainly encourage folks to do so. And again, please review all the literature that we have online that is also translated. And for employers that may be on the call, there is still time to register for the Maine Paid Leave Portal, as the first quarter filing started today, but the wage reports and the premiums will not be due until April 30th. And then finally, if you do have questions, general or any more specific questions about PFML, we do have a call center. So you can give us a call at that number that you see here, 207-621-5024. And we are open 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and see if there are any questions. Sure, there will be quite a few. I see some in the chat, but I don't know if you want me to read them off or
I
I'm
can
happy
read
to
them
do
for
it.
you.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Well, it looks like Sophia did take care of one of them, but it might be worth addressing as well to
Okay,
the group.
awesome.
Um, how would an employee, or how does this work for an employee that lives and largely works out of state, but the company is based in Maine?
Yep. So I don't know if this is maybe the question that Sophia addressed, but we do have
It
in
is, yeah.
our FAQ this specific guidance. It is a little bit difficult for us to kind of call using a sports term balls and strikes when employers ask us this question or employees for this matter, because it really is based on the locality of work. And so I'm happy to maybe to share the FAQ again. But one of the things that we are using as one potential metric is where is the employee located in terms of unemployment. So, for example, if that employee is listed on New Hampshire's unemployment, then there may be an employee for the purposes of, New Hampshire and PFML won't apply. But if they're on Maine's unemployment, then they may be considered an employee for Maine's purposes. But we also have within that FAQ a four-factor test that the employer will have to work through because, again, everybody's locality of work, it's so diverse.
Yeah.
That
One
was
of
actually
our recent, oh
Oh,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. That was actually my question. I just wanted to clarify one little piece of it. Thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful. I've been trying to tease out how this all works, and so thank you. My last question on that is, so for us, for example, like 3 out of 4 of those things do not apply to us, and it's just that like the person that they report to me like lives in Maine. And so if even one of that 4-step test applies, then they are reportable in Maine. Is that what I'm understanding? Or it has to be all 4 of them?
well, it would. Well, I don't want to maybe say here. I have to look through the test again myself,
Sure.
but I think that would be something that the employer wants, and it sounds like you've worked through it already. Will have to make that best determination, and if there are things that might go, oh well, you should have counted this employee. Hopefully we might reach out and try to clarify that because we know there's a lot of education around it, but it
Okay.
will be based on how the employers work through that test.
Heard. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hmm.
And I believe that applies similarly to Ray Petrocchi's question about an out-of-state employer that has Maine employees. Would the same rules apply there?
Yeah, for the most part, it will. There is some clarity in some degrees because we might have some out of state employers that says, I have Maine employees, they work fully remote. Do they apply? And they would in terms of having the premium deduction taken out. Um, but again, it all depends on what that locality of work is that the employer will have to work through. Because also to also clarify the out of state employer question, which made some out of state employers a little bit nervous because if you have 200 employees total, do you have to count all of them for Maine PFML? And the answer is no. You would only really need to focus on those those employees that you have in the state of Maine um, to put people at ease because again, that whether you pay 1% or a half a percent does make a difference on the employer count.
Hmm. Yeah, and I just want to plug too, Sophia included the registration link for your portal in the chat. I think that's something any employer should be checking out. I can also include it in the follow-up information for today's workshop, so everyone who's registered today will receive it, as well as a notification email.
Mhm.
Yeah, very valuable information about something that's going to apply to pretty much every business in Maine.
Yeah.
We've got plenty of time if anyone else still has any
Yep.
questions. If we don't have any questions, are people you able to use that contact from earlier? I would say that's a good place
Mhm.
to reach out to you guys.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
also here at SCORE may be able to help a little bit as well with the do-it-yourself aspect. Again, we're free one-on-one mentoring service to help you with any part of your business.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
one of the
So,
things I'll highlight is that, again, I probably threw a lot of information at you in 20 minutes,
mm,
which I know some people need time to digest. But if you do have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Especially if you're trying to, either register for the portal or you just have basic general questions about the program. But I would certainly encourage folks to go to the website.
absolutely. Well, I suppose we could wrap up early if there's no other questions today. I do appreciate everyone joining us today. Really appreciate you putting on this presentation, Reggie and Sophia, for
Thank
your
you.
support in the chat there. It's great to have those links available. And one more plug, we here at SCORE are here for any part of the life of your business, for one-on-one mentoring to the workshops like this that we put on every week. We're a partner of the Small Business Administration, and we just had the counts come in last year, or our last fiscal year. We helped start over 560 new businesses in the state of Maine. And you too could be one of them by submitting a mentor request at score.org. And I want to thank again Main Street Bath for sponsoring today's event, and Reggie for putting on a great presentation.
Well, thank you. All right.
Thanks,
Have a good day,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.